Microsoft Excel 2003, Printing and Page Setup. We ultimately will want to produce some sort of printed material, hopefully. And so in this video, we are going to take you through the hoops and get you ready to print that great spreadsheet. When we're looking at printing, we do need to understand what is it I'm going to print. We are going to do what we call set print area. We're going to say, look, I'm highlighting all this. This is what I want to print. Not sheet after sheet after sheet of just blank rows and columns. We just want maybe a certain selection to be printed. Next, we'll then take a look, how does it look on the printed page? Do you want it centered? Do you want to add headers? Do you want to add footers? All of this is part of how it looks. So in this video, we're going to see what and how. Well, up until now, we've been focusing primarily on the screen and how we can maneuver things and look at them electronically, right? But eventually with Excel, we might want to be able to print out reports or print out things for a magazine article, perhaps. And to do that, we have to be careful because sometimes we can have row upon row or column upon column of content that can stretch from here to 256 columns to 65,000 rows. A little hard to print all that and to make it look nice. So let's see some of the options that we have. Now what I've done is opened up one of the example files that we have called Debt Tracker. And we can see for our Acme Incorporated company, we maybe have a business indebtedness. How much debt does our company owe? And to be able to print this and make it look nice, we might have to adjust things just a little bit. The first thing we want to look at is how we can set the print area. Maybe we only want to print a certain section of this. Maybe we only want to print maybe the top 5 rows here. Or maybe we want to be able to only print a couple of columns over where we'll only go up to the current balance and we don't want to show the interest rate or something like that. We could just print this part. We don't want to show that. To do that, we are going to use the set print area command. Now, it's available in 2 places. We're going to show you the first one that I typically use, which is up here on the File menu. You click File, come down here to Print Area. Now to do this, you need to have selected the range beforehand like I did over here. But once you've done that, you can come over here and say Set Print Area. And when I've done that, it is now going to only print exactly what you see highlighted here. It won't print the maturity date. It's not going to print the business indebtedness or the Acme Incorporated. It's only going to print rows 3 through 11, columns B through F. Now if I click off of that, there's not really a way for me to see that that is what the print area is. To find out what is going to print when I print, I'm going to need to use the print preview. Now there's 2 ways to see this. One is up here on the toolbar. If you notice here, it's got the little magnifying glass print preview, or you can go up to File and Print Preview. It's right underneath the print area. So let's click on that, and you can see, if I zoom in here, that what I'm going to print is only what I just highlighted, right? To whom payable, loan amount, loan date, current balance, and interest rate. That's what I chose, and so that is what I am going to print. Now, one of the problems with this is that, let me go ahead and close this. From now on, whenever, it doesn't matter if I add more information down here or over here or whatever, no matter what, if I print, it is only going to print this area that I had selected earlier on. That's all it's going to do. So what if I just want to print a specific area, but I don't want to permanently set the print area? Well, I'm glad you asked that. First thing we're going to do is come up here to File, Print Area, and let's go ahead and clear the print area. That means that right now, once I hit Clear Print Area, everything that is on this worksheet will be printed, or in the entire workbook if I print all the sheets and everything. If I come up here and I click File, Print, and it will go and they'll say, hey, what printer do you want to print? If you want to preview or do something, you can do active sheets, entire workbook. But look at this. See this part right here? Selection. If I click Selection, anything that I've selected in my range would then be printed versus the sheet or the entire workbook. So I can, if I want to just, one-time print, I just wanted to print that one thing, I would select a range, then hit Selection when I hit Print, and I would be able to print that, just that little section out, which is a lot easier than trying to maybe set a print area and then you forget. Because have you ever done that where you come in, let me cancel that out, you go and you forgot that you set the print area, and then you hit print and page after page of stuff starts coming, or it's not the one that you want, and then you have to go in and cancel the print job. So we don't want to do that. So with set print area, we can set a defined area that we want. Maybe it's never going to change on this particular page, not a problem. Or if we just want to say today, I want to select this, I come up here to click File, I click Print, I would then say Selection. It will then only print what I have here. Now, of course, you can't see what my printer is going to spit out, but if I clicked OK, it would then print out just that one area that I've selected. What we've shown you so far has dealt primarily with how to set what you want to print. I'm selecting an area, that's what I want to print. But it really doesn't adjust or show you how it's going to show up on a page. That's where the page setup comes in. So let's go ahead and cancel out of the print. And I'm going to come up here to my File menu and go to Page Setup. With Page Setup, I get several options. I can say, hey, how does the page look? Is it in portrait or landscape mode? Here's where I can scale it, as we're going to see in just a little bit. I can also say, you know what? I don't have my letter 8.5 by 11. I actually have legal paper. So I can click on the down arrow and I can select maybe the legal paper or executive size or A4 and all the different paper sizes. And they have a whole bunch. And we don't need to see all of them, but Japanese postcards we can even do down here. So we'll stick with letter for right now. We can even say, hey, how do you want to do print quality here? Depending on the type of printer you have, you'll have different options. 300 DPI, 600 DPI, or 1200 DPI. Wow, that's some pretty good printing. That's dots per inch, or, 1200 dots per inch. Wow, that's a lot. So in this case, we are going to want to try to, let's say we want to fit the entire spreadsheet that I have, because my business indebtedness is not a real big spreadsheet. I want to fit it all on one page. Can I do that? Well, let's see if I can do it just by default. I click the print preview, which I can do here from the page setup, and it says this is what it's going to look at like when you print it out on your printer. Well, wait a minute, I'm missing a couple of columns. I've got 2 pages here, so if I click the next, sure enough, here's my missing columns. They're over on the second page. Now, I don't know about you, but I hate having to look at, especially when there's only 2 columns, you have to flip back and forth, and then you're like trying to track, well, which column or which row does this match up with over here? I mean, to whom I'm paying it to. I want to fit this entire thing onto one page. No worries, we can do that. Let's go back to setup. Now notice up here you can zoom in print preview. We didn't show this, so I can see it a little bit better. Or zoom back out. I can also go ahead and just, hey, go ahead and print it. I can go back to the setup, which is where I want to go. I can see where the margins are set by clicking on margins. It'll show me where the column margins are and all that. And I can even adjust the margins here by clicking and dragging, and it'll move here. So, but you can do that if you want. That's always good to eyeball it. But you can also set up the margins here. I can do a page break preview, which will show you where the pages will set, and I can close and get out and back to the spreadsheet. Let's go back to setup though and see that right now I'm at 100% my normal size. Here's one way, especially if you're only missing like a couple of columns or maybe a couple of rows and you just want to squeeze it in on one page. I don't recommend, and I think you've probably experienced this, if you have this huge spreadsheet and you say, hey, I want to take this 250 row, 14 column spreadsheet and put it all onto one page. And so you hit this, scaling fit one page. So if I click on fit to 1 page wide by 1 page tall, it's going to squeeze it down to like 25%. You can't even read anything on the page. No, we don't want to do that. But in this case, no problem, guys. We can just say fit to 1 page wide by 1 page tall. I'm only missing those 2 columns. So if I click OK, let's see if it fixed it. Yep, there it is. And notice it shrunk a little bit. It's now a little bit smaller, so that way we can fit all the columns all the way across. So no problems there. We're set up and ready to go. Now we saw that we can set up our margins by clicking the margins button, and it shows it, and we can move these back and forth as necessary. You just go down to the appropriate one. But we can also, and let me turn this off, just by clicking margins again. This is merely a switch. You turn it on and off. If I go back to setup, I also have a tab here for margins, and here's where I can do it exactly by putting in the exact numbers that I want to do. So instead of, right now I think I adjusted that. You can see I changed that when I dragged earlier on that arrow back and forth. I didn't get it exactly back to the default, which is .65. So let's say I want to adjust that back to .65. So I put .65, and now it's going to be evenly distributed across from the top, the left, the right, and the bottom of my margins. And I can see whenever I select in one of these areas, it highlights which one I'm adjusting. If I go down here, it says, oh, you're adjusting this one. If I click here on the top, it shows me the top margin. Now you'll see that it also lets you set where your header information goes. That's this one single gray up here. If I select header, it'll pop you up and say that's what that line is. So we can do that. Right now, I have it set where it's centered on the page horizontally. That means it will set from the left to the right, it will find the middle, and it will center it. If I do vertically, it will do it from the top to the bottom and find the middle place. So I can right now set it right smack dab in the middle of the page just by clicking on center on page horizontally and vertically. So you can see right now we're not picking what, we're saying how it's going to appear on the page. That's what page setup does for us. So let me take off the vertically just for fun. If you click on the options, if I click on options, it is going to give me more about what is going on with the printing on your particular printer. Now, I'm only showing you this for showing you what that button does. Your mileage may vary. It depends on what type of printer you have. I happen to have a Photosmart 2570 series. Yours might be different. So let me cancel out of that. That's what the options are when you're on your print margins. Because some printers, just so you understand, they don't like it if you get too far near the edge. They say, hey, look, that's outside the printable area, and you'll get an error message when you try to print. So you can set that and maybe change it with the options key. Now, one thing that you are going to find when you print multiple sheet after sheet after sheet, especially when you're doing a lot of these really big financial and accounting type spreadsheets, is that you can get confused about what it is you're actually looking at. What report? What are the dates? What are things going on here? So that's why Excel gives you the option for the header and footer information. Now, the header and footer, the header is what is at the top of the page. The footer is what it's at the bottom of the page. Now, they give you a couple of things you can choose from. I can click on the down arrow, and this is for my header information. I can click on the down arrow, and it says, hey, do you want to put the page number at the top? You can say this is page 1. I can say it's page 1 of however many. So if it's the first page, it would say page 1 of 20, and then the next page would be page 2 of 20. I can put the title that I have in the first column. I can put in my CBT Nuggets Confidential, which means that, because this is my CBT Nuggets, and that way I've kind of legally said this is confidential and no one can argue with me. I can put the name of it. There's many options that Excel gives us. It gives me where it's located, what page it is. And so you have all these options that are built in to your particular headers. And again, it'll just depend. Now, I can create a custom header or a custom footer. And by the way, the footer is the same thing. I can come down here and say, do I want the same thing? Like, for example, let's say I want to say CBT Nuggets Confidential because it is debt. So I click on this. Look what it shows you what's going to show up at the very bottom. At the one corner, it's going to say the CBT Nuggets Confidential, the date, followed by the page number. Up here, though, I want to make a custom header. So I click OK. And it says, all right, select the text that you want. What's going to be in the left part of the header, what's going to be in the center of it, and what's going to be in the right. So if I come in here, and it allows me to pick a couple things. I could, put numbers. I can put the numbers. I can put the name of it. Oh, there's a lot of things. In this case, I'm just going to say hello. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't say hello. I would put the author. In this case, it's me, Chris Ward. Center section. This is the debt tracker. And then I can say, I'm going to go ahead and put what the page number is, and it puts it in the code. So this is going to give us the ability to, change it. Now, if I want the font to change, I can highlight this and click font, and it'll say, well, what do you want it to show up as? area or whatever the different types of fonts you can put strikes through. It's, typical font formatting, just like we saw with the cells and anything else. So I'll stick with the Arial, click OK, and now when I click OK, it's going to say, look, Chris Ward, debt tracker, and then whatever page number it's going to be. And by the way, the options, this just brings us out to our printer to make sure maybe that we're able to print the header and footer information that's located here. So this is just a way for us to track over many, many different pages, maybe who authored it, if it's confidential or not, the date, the pages, the name of it. We can put all kinds of information, and this is going to print on every single page that you have when you print out the portion of your spreadsheet or your workbook that you're doing. There's one last thing that we want to show for this video, and that is what happens when you do have a tremendous amount of information, whether it's across columns or down a whole bunch of rows. How do you print if you're printing multiple pages? Click on Sheet. What Sheet allows us to do is a couple of things. Number one, notice where it says Print Area. Just like if I had the set print area, I can do that here as well. If you remember at the beginning of the video, I said you can set it in two places. One, we showed you right on the menu. Here is where you do it the second place. I can click here, and it will open up a separate screen. I can then select if I'm not in this. In fact, let me show you how to do that. Let me click Cancel here. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. I'm back here on my actual spreadsheet. So if I go to File and Page Setup, now notice how I'm able to select the print area because I'm not in print preview mode. So if I come here, it can say, all right, well, what's the print area you want to select? Well, I click this, and it says, all right, and it gives me the dialog box. I can now go in here and start selecting what I want to print. So let me go ahead and just say I'm going to print this area, and when I click this again, it's going to give me my print area. So I can select that here as well. It also says, do you want to print titles? Are there rows you want to repeat at the top or columns to repeat at the left? Well, what does that mean? Well, if you see over here, and actually you can kind of look down here and it kind of gives you an example. Let's say I have titles at the top of each one of my columns. The name, number, email address. Well, if I repeat that row at the very top, let me click on this, and I'm going to scroll up. See this row right here? That includes all of this information. It says this is the one, 3 and 4, which are combined together, merged together. I want to print this at the top of every page. That's good, right? Because when I'm printing out page after page, if I've got 150 rows of this, I want to make sure I know, well, this is the loan date is in this column. This is the current balance in this column. This is the interest rate. This is good to do. So I can repeat the rows to repeat at the top. I can also say, maybe I want to repeat columns. Maybe it's not I have 150 rows, but I got 256 columns, and I want to make sure that I keep track of a person's name, which is right here. Not a problem. I can do that as well by clicking and doing the same thing I just did with rows to repeat. Well, I don't need to do that because I'm just concentrating on rows here. I can also do print, and this is just options that I have. I can put the grid lines in if I don't have them highlighted. I can do row and column headings if I want to. I can do black and white, draft quality. I can add comments. Do I want to add the comments as part of what's printed? No. If there's cell errors, do we print those? So these are things that give me the options again, and this is, we saw at the beginning, what you print, this is how it's going to look when it's printed out. And then finally, this is very important when you want to do multiple pages, because I have several options here. I can say, let's say I have many, many different columns all the way across, and I want to print all of the columns first for these particular rows and then move down. So in other words, I would print this 5 columns, and then it would print, and maybe I have 25 rows underneath that, and then it would print the next 5 columns which with those same 25 rows, and then that's the end of the columns. Then it moves down to the next set of rows below those 25 rows, and it starts off with the first column all the way to the first 5, and then the next page. So this is how it's going over and then down. So it makes like a Z. Or I can say, I want it to go down first. I want to print all of the rows under those 5 columns and then start at the top again. but this would be page 1, this would be page 2, this would be page 3, and this would be page 4. If I do over and then down, this is page 1, this is page 2, this is page 3, and this is page 4. So all of these are options that we have, and so when I click OK, I have now set this up, and let me click on Print Preview, and we can see that I still have, in this case, because I'm only showing my little spreadsheet here, it's going to print one page, but if I had all those multiple pages, it would do all the things that I had shown, including the set print area, which is right here. It would set up on going over then down, or down then over. Whatever it is, it would be set up, and I would be ready to print and make it look really nice when I do have that printout come out of my printer, which ultimately is going to be one of our goals in Excel. It's kind of like the Vidal Sassoon commercials. You remember those? If you don't look good, we don't look good. Well, in this case, hopefully I showed you how you can take your Excel spreadsheets and make them look good. First off, we took a look at what do I print. I want to make sure I select a certain area, or I want to make sure that only the active sheets, or maybe I want, even if I want to print the entire workbook, I want to make sure that I'm only selecting areas where there's actual content and not the hundreds of rows, thousands of rows or columns that I'm having, and it's just page after page of blank stuff. Then we said, how does it look? Do we want a header or footer? Do we want the margins set a certain way? Do we want parts of it on one page and then parts of it on another? Do we do page breaks? All that. That's how it looks. And that's very important as well when you're printing out your Excel spreadsheets. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.